Welcome, class. Again, my name is Mr. Jeter. This is going to talk about some of the fundamentals of economics. Economics of the Free Enterprise System is a senior level course that studies the economic effects of your life. So we're going to be covering a bunch of different aspects of economics in this class. We're going to start off with a slideshow presentation. Bear with me for a second while I bring that up. All right. Right now, I want y'all to list 10 things you have purchased in the last month. 10 things that you purchased in the last month. I'll give you a few moments. Think about that. Now, when you're looking at those 10 things, were they expensive things? Were they like clothing? Were they food? The money that you used to purchase those items, were they your money? Were they your parents' money or a guardian's money or a sibling's money? Okay. The different variables that goes into our purchases. If we have more money, we can obviously buy more stuff. We have less money, then we got to look at those different things to buy and choose the best of those items. All those decisions have something to do with economics. So introduction to economics, we're talking about choices, choices, choices. What is economics, you might ask? Economics is the study of how individuals and societies make decisions about ways to use scarce resources to fulfill wants and needs. Scarce resources. Yes, we have air, we have water, we have food, stuff of that nature, but depending on where you are on this earth, those things may be in short supply, and you got to manage what you do with those resources. In America, although we're the land of opportunity, we still have certain resources that needs to be managed well. So you got to look into those different things. And economics is about that study of how we make those decisions. When we talk about economics, there's two types of economics, macroeconomics and microeconomics. Macroeconomics is the big picture. We're talking about how governments spend money, how nations spend money, how they interact. What choices made by these large groups or countries that affect the dollar? You'll be talking about gross national product, gross domestic product down the road. Microeconomics deals with the individual, how you manage your money, okay? How you deal with your resources to purchase food, water, clothing, things that you need, things that you want. There's 5 economic questions that we ask ourselves as a society. They are what to produce, how much to produce, how to produce it or manufacture it, for whom are we producing these items for, and who gets to make these decisions. No one goes into business with the idea of losing money. Everybody wants to make money. In order to make money, you got to produce a good or a service or a product that people want to buy, okay? So what to produce? What do people want? Okay, that's the age-old question. Successful businessmen find out what the people want and provide that service. How much to produce? If you overproduce a product, then you're losing money. Those products in a factory or in a warehouse does not do the producer any good if he cannot sell his goods. So if you overproduce something, you're going to lose money. So you got to figure out not only what people want, but how much of it do they want, so you can build that item or create that item in a way that you make money and they're satisfied. How to produce it? The resources to make that thing. If the resources to build your product cost a lot of money, cost more than it is for you to sell that product, then guess what? You're not going to be making that product, okay? You got to balance the resources to make the product with the quantity supplied to meet the need. It's a balancing act. Those that do well make money. Those that do not do well, guess what? They lose money. for whom to produce these items and who gets to make these decisions. The CEOs, they get to make those decisions. They make the big bucks for a reason. Those that don't do well, they get fired and someone else gets hired. What are resources? Definition: the thing used to make other things, okay? Those items that we use to make a product or a service. Trees, coal, water, sunlight, energy, whatever it takes to build a certain product, those are resources. Take a look at that car at the very bottom of your screen there. Okay, to make that car, there's a whole bunch of resources that go into it, from the metal or fiberglass to make the frame, to the rubber for the tires, to the gas that goes into the engine. A whole bunch of different aspects of resources. There's a fundamental problem. Can you guess what that fundamental problem is? Scarcity. Unlimited wants and needs, but limited resources. Yeah, we live in a finite world with infinite wants. We have lots of wants, but there's a limited resources to fulfill those needs. List 5 of your favorite items or goods, whether it's boots, phones, etc. Give you a moment to think about those things. Where did you buy those items? Where were they made? Just that thought process. Depending on where they're made, it could be expensive or cheap. Choices, choices, choices. Because all resources, goods, and services are limited, we must make choices. Let me go back. If you're a billionaire, you don't need to think about where the money is coming from. But if you have a 9-to-5 job, you got a big family to feed, you measure how much that money you have, and you got to balance it out for that whole month. You got a job, you get paid twice a month or once a month. You got to balance that money between paycheck to paycheck. Choices. Do you buy that ribeye steak, or do you buy those sardines? Do you buy that very good product, or you buy a name brand, a cheaper product? Choices. Why choices? We make choices about how we spend our money, time, and energy so we can fulfill our needs and our wants. Next question: what are needs? What are wants? Needs are the stuff we must have to survive, generally food, shelter, clothing. Okay? Without these needs, hey, you're going to die. Without food, you'll die. Without shelter, you'll die. Without clothing, you'll die. Now, one teenager once told me, hey, Mr. G, without a cell phone, I would die. Well, I would say that's not really true, because you can't eat a cell phone. You can't wear a cell phone. You want a cell phone. What are wants? Wants are the stuff we would really like to have, like fancy food, not just food, but fancy food. Shelter. Yeah, shelter is good. What kind of shelter? Do you need to stay in the Trump Plaza or a watered down shack? Okay, they're both shelter, but one's more expensive than the other. Clothing, big screen TVs, jewelry, conveniences, also known as luxuries. So there are clothing, shelter, and food that are needs that can go off into the want category when it's just too expensive. Water versus that latte, that cellular device. Needs versus wants. Trade-offs. What are trade-offs? You can't have it all. So you have to choose how to spend your money, time, and your energy. These decisions involve picking one thing over all the other possibilities, or a trade-off. What could you have done instead of coming to school today? And yes, you are in school, even though you're on a computer. You could have slept longer, could have went out shopping, you could have been playing a video game, okay? These are trade-offs. You looked at the relative need for an education to get that paper, that's graduation certificate, so you can get that better job. So you're going to spend the time it takes now to get through this class. Okay. Opportunity cost equals the value of the next big choice. When I say opportunity cost, we're looking at what you didn't do. Opportunity cost. Because I went to school today, I chose to do that. My opportunity cost was that time I could have stayed home and slept. That time I could have went doing some kind of sporting event. Opportunity cost is that other choice that you could have done. That's your opportunity cost. Because you stayed up late last night and didn't get a lot of sleep, that was your opportunity cost. You missed some sleep. But the balance of that is maybe you're going to get a better grade on that test. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Imagine that the friendly neighborhood pizza restaurant set up a table full of pizza boxes outside your school about lunchtime and put up a sign that said pizza and soda, $0. Why wouldn't that be a free lunch? It didn't cost you anything, right? Well, it may not have cost you in terms of money, but any situation which forces you to make a choice results in an opportunity cost. Or consider this, you may spend several hours this evening tweeting and texting friends at no additional monetary cost to your phone plan. You may think of this as free, but there is a cost. What opportunity did you give up? That time. In his famous quote, Milton Friedman was reminding us of the lesson we have learned today. Because of scarcity, we must choose, and choice means that there is an opportunity cost. Now take a look at the first example of the free pizza. Because you chose to eat that pizza, there's an opportunity. You could have went somewhere else. Okay, you could have spent money somewhere else. You probably could have got a free meal somewhere else. There's an opportunity. This is really important. When you choose to do one thing, its value, how much it is worth, is measured by the value of the next best choice. This can be in time, energy, or even money. So what is the opportunity cost of buying a pizza? Hey, you could have bought a hamburger. You could have been a vegan, could have ate a salad. Opportunity cost, the next other choice besides the one that you chose to do. Let's wrap it up. What is economics? Study of how individuals and societies make decisions about ways to use scarce resources to fulfill wants and needs. Now, when you were talking about the individual, we're talking about microeconomics. Think about the little man, me and you. When we're thinking about societies, we're talking about macroeconomics, or the big picture. Gross national product, gross domestic product, stuff of that nature. What is macroeconomics? Again, it's the big picture. Let me go back. We're talking about the growth of big companies as well as big countries. We're talking about growth, employment, unemployment. Those numbers all go into macroeconomics. What is microeconomics? That's the little picture, how individuals make economic decisions, how you're going to spend that money, those limited resources in your pocket to make a living. What's the difference between a need and a want? We talked about that a little bit. Let's hammer that on home. Needs are items for survival like water, food, and shelter. Our wants are luxuries, fancy items. What are resources? Things used to make other goods. What is scarcity? It's unlimited wants and needs, but limited resources. What is opportunity cost? The cost of the choice not taken. When you choose to do one thing, its value, how much it is worth, is measured by the value of the next best choice. This can be in time, energy, or even money. What are the 5 economic questions society must figure out? What to produce, how much to produce, how to produce it, for whom to produce, who gets to make these decisions, and there you go, those 5. Take a look at this hamburger. Where did this come from? You break it down, you're looking at the bun, the meat, the lettuce, the cheese, the resources to make it. Production. So how do we get all this stuff that we have to decide about? Decisions, decisions. The world is full of decisions. Production. Production is how much stuff an individual or business or country, even the world, makes. Stuffs are goods and services. Goods are the products that you buy, services are people that perform a product, like a hairdresser, a barber, a person that cuts your grass, a handyman. They're selling a service. Goods are tangible. You can touch it. Products we can buy. While services is work that's performed for others. Capital goods are goods used to provide services or to make money. Now, can you give an example of some capital goods? Something that is used to provide services or to make money? Tools, tractors, factory items. Capital goods are used to make other goods. Consumer goods are the final products that are purchased directly by the consumer, like a car. So what do we need to make all of this stuff? Think about it for a second. Resources. The 4 factors of production are land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. The 4 factors of production. You need the land or natural resources to make those items. Labor, people that take those natural resources and make a product. Capital, tool, machinery, factories, the things that we use to make things. And entrepreneurship, the person with the mind to put all those things into motion to make the money. That's the person that they pat you on the back when you do good and they kick you in the bottom when you do bad. Investing time, natural resources, labor, and capital are all risks associated with production. All production is a risk. One day you could be up, one day you could be down, just like the stock market. The keen eye looks ahead at the future battle and makes good decisions so they can stay ahead of the curve. Which is a factor of production? Which is a factor of production? Which factor of production is this? Which factor of production is this? 3 parts to the production process. Which came first? Factors of production, what we need to make goods and services. Producer, a company that makes goods and or delivers services. And the consumer, people who buy goods and services, formerly known as stuff. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? This is the production process. Land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship goes into the production of manufacturing or the factory. They produce goods and services, which is then bought by the consumer, you and I. Take a look at this process. Changes in production. Specialization. Dividing up production so that goods are produced efficiently. Instead of one person doing a whole bunch of different jobs, they do just one thing, and they do that one thing well. Back when we were working on farms, for instance, the mother or the family would probably have to do a whole bunch of things. Mother had to sew the sweater and take care of the kids while the dad did the yard work, and the kids did this and did that thing that they want, they had to make. And it was time consuming and took all day. When they do just one thing and specialization occurs, that's when cities were built up, people coming together doing just one thing, they were able to produce more and more goods. And guess what? You got more free time. Instead of doing everything, you're doing 1 or 2 things. Here's some examples. Nike makes shoes, not hamburgers. Hardee's make hamburgers, not shoes. Still get some specialization. Take a look at these two pictures. Which one shows more specialization? Obviously, the first one. That's a big city. People in big cities do a bunch of different things, and because of that, they're able to reap those benefits. While people on the right, probably a small town, small farm, they do somewhat similar things. Look at the tractors, for instance. So, parked side by side. Pretty much the whole town probably does the same thing. Agricultural work. Which one specialized? This or this shopping center? Okay. General store sells general products. Okay, well, the shopping center sells more of abundance. Think about it, one of your neighborhood Walmart, that would be the general store, while the bigger Walmart store would be that shopping center. Got more stuff. Generally, if you got the money, you go to the place with the more stuff. Changes in production, division of labor. Different people perform different jobs to achieve greater efficiency. And on the other hand, too many cooks spoil the broth. Everybody needs to do different things. That makes me think of Detroit. The majority of the jobs in Detroit were factory jobs. But when people stopped buying cars, or they started buying cars from like Japan or overseas, because Detroit, the majority of the people in Detroit were in that car making profession, Detroit suffered. There was not enough specialization. Changes in production, consumption, how much we buy, consumer sovereignty. This Dell store is empty because everyone is at the Apple store. Apple store has more diversity in products, so people tend to go there. Dell tends to just do one thing. Again, a great example, like I was telling you about Detroit, because they all did one thing, pretty much the whole state suffered. Variety allows you to diversify, do more stuff. Why? Good question. Why is the Newburgh Mall about clothes and this other mall is so full of people? That Newburgh Mall is like a general store. They don't sell as much specialized stuff as the malls. Change in production. If we increase land and labor capital, we increase production. If we decrease land, labor, and capital, we decrease production. But why would we ever decrease production? Remember, we gave you an example of when there's too much stuff, and then you have your product in a factory and you're losing money. You want to look at what people want and make the appropriate amount of items so that you make a profit and people get what they want. Circular flow model. Economic model illustrating the flow of goods and services through the economy. In a model, producers are termed as firms, while consumers are referred to as households. Firms supply goods and services. Households consume those goods and services. Factors of production are land, labor, and capital, are supplied by the household to firms, and firms convert these into finished products for household consumption. It's a circular flow. Here's an example. Okay, let's wrap it up. Part 2, we're going to talk about cost and revenues. What is cost? It's the total amount of money it takes to produce an item to pay for all the factors of production. Revenue is the total amount of dollars a company or the government takes in. So cost, revenue. Fixed costs, that's the amount of money a business must pay each month or year, like rent and capital expenses. Variable costs, the amount of money a business pays that changes over time, Like, for instance, labor and raw materials. One day, trees and oil or whatever may be at a certain price. Certain days it may go up, some days it may go down. That's a variable cost. It changes, as opposed to the fixed cost, where every month you got to pay a certain amount of money. Okay. Total cost equals the fixed plus those variable costs. The fixed, that's that certain amount you're paying every month, and the variable cost is those things that change. All that adds up to your total cost. Those total costs adds up to a chart, marginal cost, the additional cost of the next unit produced. Margin equals extra space. Marginal cost is the additional cost of the next unit produced. Profit, guess what that is? The difference between total cost and revenues. This is why you're in business, to make that profit. Profit equals the revenues minus the total cost. So whatever you get paid for that item, you guys subtract what it took for you to make that item, and then what's left over is profit. That profit motives, why you're in business, is to make money. Cost benefit analysis. This is when you look at what you got coming in and what you got going out, and you determine where you want to go with it. Cost benefit analysis, weighing the marginal cost versus the marginal benefit of producing an item or making any economic decision. If the benefit is greater than the cost, then business does it. Cost benefit analysis, immediate or short-term satisfaction can lead to missing the long-term benefit. For example, immediate spending on cheap stuff instead of long-term savings will lead to lower economic prosperity. You'll shoot yourself in the foot if you're always trying to cut corners and buying cheap stuff, because cheap stuff will break down over time, and you got to keep buying more stuff. You take the time to spend the money for the right quality item, you'll be in business for longer periods of time. You spend the money to get that educated worker, that worker will benefit you in the company long term than you getting a 9-to-5 worker who only care about that dime and will probably jump ship when a better job comes along. There's a cost benefit analysis, something that you need to look at when you're in business. I'm going to wrap it up again. Take a look at these different signs. What comes to mind? Okay. 3 different ways of economics. Okay. We live in what's called a capitalistic environment that's represented by Uncle Sam. Socialism, pretty much the people are in charge of the country. And communism, the government is in charge of the country. I'm going to explain it a little bit more. Traditional economics, defined. Economic questions answered by custom, predominantly agricultural, developing third worlds, trade and barter oriented, have a low gross domestic product, and a PCI, per capita income. Those are traditional economies. Demand economies, we know them as like social, not socialist, communist countries. Economic questions answered by the government, very little economic choice, no private ownership, communism, old Soviet Union, old communist China, Cuba, and North Korea. Those are communist or command economies. Communism failed due to market reforms in China in the mid-1970s, the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. Free market capitalism with some mixed economies showed that they were better than communism. Now, although we claim to have a free market, we know that there's still government involved in our economies. Okay, we do pay taxes. Government does get involved with our politics to make sure there are no monopolies in business. Okay, so we don't really necessarily have a total free market, but it's more hands-off than communism or socialism. Free market capitalistic economies. Economic questions answered by producers and consumers, not the government. But there is limited government involvement because we do have laws that prevent monopolies. We do have tax rates, stuff of that nature. Private property rights, wide variety of choices in products. Examples is the US and Japan. Adam Smith is the father of modern economics. Okay, he was 18th century Scottish economist, published The Wealth of Nations in 1776. He explained the workings of the free market within capitalistic economies. He talked about the invisible hand of the market, how it drives economies. We'll learn more about Adam Smith. He believed in laissez-faire, as a French word for hands off. Government stays out of business practices to let the marketplace determine production, consumption, and distribution. Individual freedom and choice is emphasized in a laissez-faire capitalistic system. Principles of capitalism: competition. More businesses mean lower prices and higher quality products for consumers, the US, to buy, or us. Voluntary exchange of businesses and consumers must be free to buy or sell what and when they want. Individuals and businesses must be able to get the benefits of owning their own property. Government doesn't control it. You have your own stuff. Capitalism. Consumer is the sovereign. Consumers get to make free choices about what to buy, and this helps drive production. Demand drives the supply. People want to make or save some money. Their self-interest motivates capitalism. Your self-interest. You want to make money, put money in your pocket, save for those rainy days. That determines the markets. That motivates capitalism. Okay. Capitalism, again, says the government should not allow people to suffer an economic crisis. It's a natural part of capitalism's business cycle, but provides security instead. Social security, unemployment, insurance, etc. So we're not totally laissez-faire, hands off. The government does get involved, especially when there's a crisis, but generally our economic system is hands off. Now, this is more of a mixed economy. We're going to talk about socialism. Now take a look at how it differs from capitalism. Government involvement and ownership and control of property, of decisions making, and companies. So government is more involved. Government has control of businesses. Social safety net for people. The advantage is, hey, people are taken care of. Socialism is common in Europe, Latin America, and Africa. John Maynard Keynes, the invisible hand doesn't always work. The long run is a misleading guide to current affairs. In the long run, we're all dead, or the trouble is people eat in the short run. John Maynard Keynes was a key person who identified this type of market. Keynesian economics states, government should intervene in economic emergencies through tax and spending, which is called fiscal policy, and changing the money supply, which is monetary policy. This is done to smooth out the business cycle and keep inflation low. So John Maynard Keynes is the one who came up with this fiscal and monetary policy. When economy is going bad, generally the government will infuse money into the economy so things run smoothly. When there's lots of money everywhere, generally governments will take money out of the system so it can keep balanced. We look at that as fiscal policy. Let's take a look at labor issues. Labor wants to get paid. So wages, what companies pay employees for their labor? Salary, the amount of pay a person gets over a year. We got blue collar workers versus white collar workers. Manufacturing versus office jobs. Different types of labor. When production decreases, companies got to make decisions. Usually they do what's called downsizing, laying off employees to save costs, or outsourcing, sending jobs in manufacturing overseas or contracting to outside companies to save money. You may hear in the news how some of our jobs went overseas because companies realized they can make more of a profit utilizing cheaper labor. Bankruptcy. Government allows businesses to restructure its debt, but now all profits go to paying off debt rather than to the owners or the investors. Out of business, lose all your business, money, and profits. The current trend in the U.S. is that manufacturing jobs are declining, and we're looking at different types of technological jobs are increasing. How does labor protect itself? Generally, in America, we have what's called labor unions. They're organizations of workers who have banded together to achieve common goals. Usually when you have a labor union, they'll talk to the business heads about wage protection, workplace safety, benefits, and job protection. And they work with the government too to make sure that laws are passed to protect the lower man, the laborer. When production decreases, again, downsizing, outsourcing, bankruptcy, I think I went backward. Okay, collective bargaining and strikes, these are what different things that labor unions can do. Collective bargaining, representatives of the union and the company negotiate a contract for the workers. Usually they rely on a compromise, some kind of break-even point where they don't lose as much money being the heads, and you make more than you had, but not as much as you wanted. So they look for some common ground. And if that common ground isn't met, they do what's called strikes. When an agreement can't be reached, workers stop working to try to force the hand of the company. Nobody wants a strike. All right, that concludes our slideshow. We're going to do a short pick it out the door summary test on this slideshow. I want you to do your best, go over your notes if you need to. This is Mr. Jeter. If you need me, please check on my office hours. We just looked at economics, the basics of economics. I'm gonna go ahead and get my screen share now. All right, again, we got this test that's coming up. I'll give you some instruction on that in just a moment.